I don't think enough of us, especially in creative fields, think about the power that our money gives us and our ability to show up fully in our values when we have money and it being important for that reason. But it is, and your work is important. And so that's why I want to talk to you today about the incredible power of tax advantaged accounts. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Sunlight Tax Podcast. In this show, we're talking about taxes, money, and careers for self-employed people who have a big vision for changing the world with their work. I'm your host, Hannah Cole, artist, design nerd, tax pro, author of Taxes for Humans, and the founder of Sunlight Tax. If you're a creative, wellness, or mission-driven entrepreneur who wants to grow your business sustainably, manage your taxes, and build a stash of fuck you money so you can control your time and have a bigger impact with your work, you are in the right place. Hello, beautiful. Happy summer. So I have been taking a little time. I hope you have too. I hope you're enjoying the summer wherever you are. But today I want to come to you with something that I like to revisit every summer because the summer is sort of a non-urgent time when it comes to taxes, and you can put some thought into the things you want in life, the things you want to do. And ultimately, the point of saving money, the point of investing is to be able to enjoy your life, to be able to spend time doing the things that you value and want to do. And that's all to the good, right? So I don't think enough of us, especially in creative fields, think about the power that our money gives us and our ability to show up fully in our values when we have money and it being important for that reason. But it is, and your work is important. And so that's why I want to talk to you today about the incredible power of tax advantaged accounts. So let's get into it. So what are tax advantaged accounts? What I'm talking about here is things like a 401k, a SEP IRA, a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA. But there are also tax advantaged accounts for healthcare, childcare. An HSA is a secretly incredibly powerful health savings account, which gives you a tax benefit. And the point of tax advantaged accounts really is to give you a big boost of tax savings to literally and actually put dollars in your pocket that you can then put into those savings. So these are not some corrupt, bad tax scammy thing. They are, in fact, a deliberate incentive put into the U.S. tax code to encourage taxpayers like you and me to invest in ourselves, to save for retirement, to save for healthcare, to save for education. All right. So they're really good. You are doing something positive civically when you use tax advantaged accounts. And not only that, but you get this tremendous financial benefit when you do. So it really helps to know what the rules are. But here's the problem. When you work for yourself, when you are self-employed, you get busy, right? It becomes a thing so often that just falls to the bottom of your to-do list. And I know what an awful problem that is. It's happened to me. And so I really want to come to you today with some good information that's going to help you and also tell you about a class I'm teaching actually today at noon. If you want to sign up, there's a link in my show notes, or you can go to sunlighttax.com/workshops. You want to get in on it before noon Eastern today, the day the podcast drops, June 23rd, or you can get the class after it's happened in recorded on-demand format, and that's fine too. So I want to take a minute to help you understand these accounts and how much benefit they give you, because if you're not using them, you are really leaving money on the table and missing out on a lot of money that you could have for free, a lot of money you could be squeezing out of every dollar you have without working harder, right? Just by taking an hour this summer to set some stuff up, okay? So let's get into it. The problem is when you're self-employed, you get really busy. You have too much on your plate. So it's a little hard to know where to go for good information, and you don't want to wade through so much technical detail. Am I right? Also, there's no employer setting these accounts up for you, which is another, that's a big deal. That's a real problem. It's really nice when this is just given to you, handed to you by your workplace, and it's not when you're self-employed. I think it's also hard when you have really uneven income, like I do. Good years, bad years, income goes up, income goes down. That can also make it feel difficult to maintain a habit of putting as much money as you can into these accounts, because it can feel like, well, this year's very different from last year. You can't just set it and forget it in the same way you could if you were working off of the same salary coming in every 2 weeks. Okay. So I'm here to help. Okay, how do you handle that, right? So tax advantage accounts give you a bunch of extra money in the form of tax savings, which you can literally take directly from that tax savings and put into investments. Or you can, use it to pay off debt, use it to pay for other things. Doesn't matter, but it's money in your pocket deliberately when you save. Okay, when you save through tax advantaged accounts. Mostly, I want to talk today about retirement accounts because those are kind of the big guns. The other kinds of tax advantaged accounts exist. They're great. I want you to use them. But the biggest one, the most money on the table, is from retirement accounts. So let's focus there. All right. So I just want to give you a little bit of a sense of the numbers, like how much you can actually save with these accounts. I know it's really helpful to me to see real numbers to make it feel concrete. Okay. So I want to give you an example. This is very rough and simplified, right? To keep you away from tons of tiny tax details, but a very simplified example of someone who's self-employed and has a profit of $100,000. I'm using a nice, even round number on purpose. Okay. So if you were single without any other types of income, and your income is $100,000 in profit from your self-employment, what would the tax savings be of putting the maximum into a SEP IRA? I'm using a SEP IRA here because it's frankly one of my very favorite retirement accounts for self-employed people. It has a maximum amount of flexibility. You can contribute the max 1 year and contribute nothing the next year. And that kind of lack of paperwork and maximum flexibility, that is the reason I love it so much for freelancers. So quick little takeaway for you today is a SEP IRA is like gold. Okay. It's my favorite one if you have self-employment income over about $40,000. Why do I say that? Because below that threshold, you've got a bigger allowance, contribution allowance in a Roth or traditional IRA than in a SEP IRA. And so there is sort of an income limit breakdown where one is better than the other. Okay. But if you're making $100,000, your contribution limit in a SEP IRA is higher than a traditional or Roth IRA. All right. So if I have $100,000 in self-employment income, I'm single, nothing else happening in my tax return, and I put the maximum into my SEP for 2026, it's about 20% of your freelance income. There's a little bit of details, noodly details that make it not exactly 20%. So the actual amount I can put in, according to the math I did, is about $18,587. Okay. We can call it 20%. It's a little less than that. Okay. So putting in that max, I would pay $19,474 in taxes. Now, without a SEP IRA, just the taxes I would owe on $100,000 in freelance income would be $22,365 in taxes. So in other words, for putting the max close to $20,000, actually $18,500 into a SEP IRA in 2026, my tax savings, just federal tax savings, is $2,891. Okay? So almost $3,000 that I just get as free money for maxing out my SEP IRA. The other important thing to note here is that the SEP IRA, when I max out that money, I put the $18,000 in, I'm putting it in for myself. It stays mine. The deal is I'm just putting it on a high shelf and saying, this is money I will use for financial security, right? You can call it retirement. Let's call it financial security. We all know we need that. So it's still my money. I'm not giving it to the government. I am keeping it for myself. So that is the benefit. And I get $3,000 bonus money for doing that. is a pretty great deal. Now, if you add in your state, states vary. Not all states give you a tax benefit for retirement savings, but some do. I live in North Carolina, which does give me a benefit. And I would get about $750 extra for that contribution on top of the $2,800 I would get in a federal tax benefit. So that would give me about $3,600 of tax savings, of money I'd get directly back from taxes. So it's a really, really big deal, right? I really want you to kind of clock what a big savings that is. So there's this term I heard recently called productive friction. It's apparently a term they use in education to describe the kind of struggle that makes information stick. This is something I'm thinking a lot about in the age of AI, because I think, when AI makes everything easy for you, then no information is going to really lodge in your brain when you always know you can go look up the answer. And to me, as someone who has struggled, I mean, really struggled for 25 years as a working person, I have set up and had almost every kind of retirement account that exists. I had a day job, my first job out of college. I had a 403B, which is like a 401k, but for a nonprofit institution. And after that, when I went freelance, I had a traditional IRA, I had a Roth IRA, I had a SEP IRA, and now, years later, I have a solo 401k. So I've had just about every kind of account you can have. And yeah, that productive friction, that difficulty of having to figure each one of those out and experiencing some mistakes and trips along the way, this has really taught me. So I feel like I know this like the back of my hand, frankly, because I've struggled with every piece of it. So I got some opinions, and I also, from working with a lot of clients through tax season, this was maybe the number one thing that I would slow everyone down on and force every client to have a conversation about retirement savings. I would sit there and do the math and say, did you know that if you max out your IRA this year, you'll save this amount of money? And doing that actually got a lot of my clients who would not have put money into savings for themselves and investment for themselves. It got a lot of them to do it. So I'm really proud of how pushy I've been, frankly, in getting people to save money for their financial security and invest it. It's something that I love teaching and talking about. It's something I don't think is common enough. And so this is kind of my passion. So in my program, Money Bootcamp, I have this thing that I call the power triangle. And what the power triangle is 3 skills that when you use them together, grow your money, grow every single spare cent you can out of money that you're already earning, right? So in other words, the power triangle is the way to squeeze more out of every dollar you have. So the power triangle, the 3 parts of it are: 1, investing; 2, year-end tax planning, so finding all the tax-advantaged accounts you could be using and making sure every dollar that can be in them is in them. And number 3 is saving like a millionaire, using and knowing the rules of tax-advantaged accounts, all right? So I really care that you know what those rules are of tax advantage accounts and how much benefit they give you. I hope that little example I gave you, saving close to $3,000 when you put the maximum in to a SEP IRA for 2026, I hope that kind of crystallizes the kinds of dollar amounts we're talking about here, okay? Those are going to vary, of course, depending on what your level of income is, what your level of contribution is. But when you do nothing, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to have fear, and you're not going to be building savings, right? So it is really important to use these accounts just to build that financial security. And if there is one single habit you can have in your life to build financial security for yourself, and frankly, to get free money that's on the table, it is to max out your tax-advantaged accounts every single year, okay? That is the one rule that will just get you free money and grow your savings, grow your investments faster than anything else. Okay, so if that is the big takeaway for today, if you take only one thing. The second thing that I want to say as a takeaway is that when you put the maximum amount of money or any money into a tax-advantaged account, you're putting that money into an account that is yours. In other words, you're not paying it to some other entity. You're not paying it in taxes. It's not leaving you. It stays with you. It grows. It becomes wealth, right? And so I think what people see is, oh, I'm putting $18,000 into a SEP IRA. I can't access that now. Well, that's true. You are agreeing with the government that you're going to let it sit in that account and grow for a while, right? For a long while, potentially. But it is your money ultimately that you have control of, you have access to, you make all the investment decisions on, and it's growing so that it is there for you, right? You're just moving it from the money owed to the government column into the money going to me column. Okay. So that is the second takeaway I want you to have. Yes, it does mean cash you're not accessing today, but what it means is this is cash that's going to build and grow for you tomorrow. If you're curious, when you take that money that's in your SEP IRA, traditional IRA, you also need to make sure that you have that money. You have to make some investment decisions. The second step here is investing. And that's a really important element of this equation. But when you invest that money, and let's just say at 8% annual compounded interest rate, which is kind of a generally accepted rate of return when you have money invested in, stocks, right? Diversified stocks. When you have money returning compound annual interest of 8%, $18,500 from the sample scenario that I gave you before becomes $1 million in 20 years. That's pretty amazing. And in 40 years becomes $5 million. That's enough money to feel secure in your life, to be fully retired, to not have to work anymore, right? This really is the path to building wealth, to building security. So it's exciting, I hope. To me, it's exciting. I hope it's exciting to you. And I want to give you just a couple of tidbits that I think are kind of interesting strategies that have been things that I've advised clients through the year and just things I want you to know. So did you know you can have both a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA? You don't have to make a decision one or the other, and that's it. You can actually split your contribution between two accounts in a single year, right? Or you can toggle back and forth between using a Roth this year and a traditional IRA next year, right? So there's a lot of flexibility that you can use and have, which is really helpful to know about when you're self-employed and your income goes up and goes down and you need to make pivots year to year, depending on what your income situation looks like that year. Right? So there is actually quite a bit of flexibility that you are allowed within this system, but you have to know the rules. That's the key. Another thing I want you to know is that a SEP IRA is a fantastic option for people who are self-employed and can potentially have a higher contribution limit for you than a traditional or Roth IRA, depending on how much income you make. If you make more income, a SEP IRA starts to become a better option. Okay? So I totally understand the overwhelm of feeling like you don't have the help of an employer who's going to set all this stuff up for you. And that is why you need some guidance. Here's what's out there. Here's what's good for a freelancer. Here's how those rules work. Here's what it does. Here's to what to watch out for. And guess what? I'm teaching a class on that. All right. So if you're catching this podcast right when it drops, on Tuesday, June 23rd. Today at noon Eastern, I'm teaching a class on saving like a millionaire, which is all about these tax advantage accounts, how they work, what the savings are, what the best options are for you. And I'm going to be answering questions, plus giving you a really awesome outline and a bunch of resources that will be helpful so that you walk away with next steps. Okay. So that class is today. If you are listening to this and it's afternoon on the 23rd, you can go to that same link and you can buy the class and just watch it on demand. It'll be the recording in that case. And of course, you can't ask me questions live, but you'll still get all the resources. You'll get the recording. You get it on demand. This is a 1-hour class. It's a $97 investment. So yes, it's a paid class. That also means it's a really small class. There are only a handful of people who are registered currently. So I do think there will be some ability for some real one-on-one attention, and you'll be able to ask your questions. So I do encourage you to come to the class if you can, or get the recording, because I don't know about you, sometimes I feel a little more leisure in the summer. These tax decisions feel a little more distant, but I encourage you to use this time to learn a skill that will get you free money that's sitting on the table. And make sure it's going in your pocket and into your investments and building wealth while you sleep, rather than just going out the door in the tax bill you pay every year. Okay? So let me help you save a ton of money. If you're interested in this class, you can go to sunlighttax.com/workshops to join the class, or click in the show notes. I have a little quick link to the checkout if you want to just have a one-click option. All right. So I hope this episode has given you some tidbits about the tax savings you get from tax advantage accounts. And if you want the deep dive, then come to the class today or get the class recording. I cannot wait to help you get more money. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. It really helps. I'm so grateful. My tax guide, Taxes for Humans, is available wherever you buy books and at sunlighttax.com/book. This podcast is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links I reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.